and welcome to the 495. I am your host, Doug Sparks, editor-in-chief of Merrimack Valley Magazine. And Lou, I think you can tell I'm a little bit excited about the episode.
You're Ringo Sparks. We're talking about looking kind of Beatles today.
I even donned my special Beatles wig to get ready. It's weird the way I feel like my hair is kind of, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to the barber's, so it has a life of its own.
No, this is working.
Changes.
This is working big time. I know you've got a lot of different looks.
Yeah. It's going through all of them. It's going through all of them, and back to looks from eras before my own.
It's great though. It's nice that you can pull it off. I mean, I've had the same look since for 20 years.
Yeah. Well, you say that, but there's also this kind of like it's good to just I look this way, and this is me, and this is where I'm comfortable, instead of maybe I should try this, or maybe I should, always searching can put you in a place of anxiety.
Yeah. Well, guys have that thing where they would like different looks. They'll experiment with different looks, but they don't want to look like they're working at it too much.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
It just happened.
You kind of have to hide it.
You came in very excited today.
I was very excited.
Yeah.
And it's funny because our guest today, I'll introduce him in a minute, wrote me probably what was one of the most considerate introduction emails, where he was just kind of sounding me out to see if he wanted to get in the podcast, and he mentioned got into some specifics about the 495, and just was very, very polite.
Nice.
And was just it was one of the most considerate emails I've ever gotten from someone interested in being on the podcast. Mm-hmm. Except he could have just written and said, "I have a hot sauce company.
Can I
be on the podcast?" I would have said yes, because I love hot sauce and I love spicy food. I love spicy food since I was young. I was even thinking back, I don't even think it was Au Bon Pan then. You know the Au Bon Pan in Harvard Square?
Yeah.
And there's that little tiny mall next to it. For a very short period of time. And it was kind of my introduction to craft anything. I knew craft coffee, but I didn't think of it as craft coffee because I went to the Coffee Connection in Harvard Square and places like that. But there was a booth, or a little, it wasn't even a booth. It looked like a little kind of wooden trolley that sold craft hot sauce. This is decades ago.
Yeah.
It didn't last that long, but I just remember this is amazing. And I would get, whatever my allowance was, and I would pick up these weird hot sauces, which tended to be these, some of them would have these very extreme kind of macho, there was always a donkey with a flame coming out of its ass on the logo or something like that.
The labels are great on hot sauce.
But I was seeing what was probably the first signs of some sort of craft hot sauce movement. And then it didn't last because, in the decades ago in Harvard Square, there was only me. I was the only guy sitting there buying. Anyway, let me introduce the guest. His name is Brian Ruhlmann from CraftHotSauce.com, and he's the owner of Crack Hot Sauce. Brian, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, so I have a lot of questions for you, but I want to start with a big one. What is the hottest thing you've ever eaten?
It was at the New York City Hot Sauce Expo 2017. And the New York City Hot Sauce Expo is I'm bugging out for the whole weekend because there's 50 hot sauce vendors from all over the world. There's 10,000 people. And just with COVID right now, it would be so overwhelming to be there just because I haven't been around more than 10 people in a long time. But so they have eating competitions throughout the whole time. And one of them is the volcanic pepper fiery pizza competition of doom. And it's I actually went out to lunch thinking that it was just eating a slice of pizza. That's 2 million Scoville units. So the sauce is all this natural Carolina Reaper ghost pepper sauce. It replaces as the pizza sauce. And then there's extract pepper flakes. There's hot sauce on top of that. And you had to eat the entire pizza. Yeah. And I was up against eating competition or competitive eaters. And I was 3 slices in, and then just pins and needles coming down from my face. I was numb. And then I was just in this zone, and I didn't end up winning it because I couldn't eat a whole entire pizza in 6 minutes like the winner did. But that was the hottest thing that I ever tasted. And I was numb, and endorphins were flying for a couple hours after that.
Yeah. So Did you hallucinate?
Not hallucinate, but I was numb and I was in a good mood and I was like on cloud nine.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's the weird thing about it, right? Is maybe people who don't appreciate heat don't understand is there's this kind of blissful like strange feeling oftentimes waiting for you on the other side.
Yeah, yeah. I've come to kind of accept it because like I do a lot of chopping peppers, and actually in harvest season we get all our peppers, we wash them, we chop them, and then put them in a freezer so we can kind of use them throughout the year. And all the time I get it all like the capsaicin oil all over my hands and all over my feet,
Yeah.
and there's not much you can do with it. So I just kind of learned to try to enjoy the pain and enjoy the pins and needles. And yeah, last year I did it in flip flops and I had it on my feet. That was a stupid move, but yeah, I had it on my feet with the pins and needles and the feeling the capsaicin for probably like 48 hours.
Well,
After that.
if you live to age 130, they're going to have a pretty good idea of the effect of this stuff on people, for sure. So you mentioned getting the peppers. Do you get those locally?
I do, yeah. I get them from Hutchins Farm in Concord, and
That's where you first started getting them too. So you've been doing this since the beginning.
Yep. So yeah, we get most of it from Hutchins Farm. We get some of it from Kitchen Garden Farm in Sunderland, and I grow some of my own peppers that a few more unique peppers that aren't grown in many farms around here. But I'm always meeting new farms and looking about what they're growing. But I find that I get the best produce, and it's just easier. And I love meeting the farms around me, so I always source local.
Is the climate around here good for spicy? Because I guess I kind of had this feeling, or maybe I picked up, who knows, maybe it's a myth, that the really, really spicy stuff needs to be grown in a warmer climate. Is that just an illusion that I've picked up over the years?
So I'm not like a scientist on this, but there's a lot of people that say the heat of peppers come from genetics and it doesn't really matter. So some people say, oh, you need to stress out the soil. But generally peppers grow best when the soil is around 80 degrees, which is better in southern areas. And there's different pepper plants that grow better in certain regions, and some of them that are really only in some very small pockets, like the datil pepper. It's a very unique pepper that's only grown in St. Augustine and really can't grow in other places. So a lot of the peppers like jalapeno, serrano, ghost, habanero, those are a lot of ones that I use, and those are pretty easy to grow throughout the U.S. and other parts of the world. So yeah.
Is it like wine where year from year the peppers taste slightly differently? Like, can you tell, oh, the crop in 2019 was much better than 2018 for such and such a reason?
Yeah, so I think that's with any food product. It can really vary. I'd say when I sourced my jalapenos last year, the heat was much less. So I was taking my recipe from the previous year, and I did the first batch, and I was like, whoa, this is a significant less heat on this one. So I had to kind of move around the recipe a little bit to bring that heat up. So yeah, I think like you get, even from the same farm, you get one pepper and another, they're going to have different flavor and heat to it.
Hey, is there a contingent in the hot sauce community who sort of see it as not cool to focus on the heat? And I say this just because, like I told you before the show, I used to work in specialty coffee, and there are certain people at a very high level where you start joking about like caffeine, and they just think it's the least cool thing in the world to talk about caffeine, right? It's like somehow whatever they're doing is above that. Are there people who think it's uncool to focus on the heat aspect because they're so focused on other aspects of chilies?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think a lot of people embrace the heat piece because I think there's just there's definitely those macho men and women that are like, oh, I can handle Mad Dog 357, which is like an extract sauce that's actually produced locally here in Sudbury. But I'd say a lot of people go for the flavor, but heat is a big part of it. And I know shows like Hot Ones, I don't know if you've seen that, where they interview celebrities and doing hotter sauces. I mean, I think people can look towards those hotter sauces, and they a lot of times those Carolina Reapers taste amazing, but I'd say a lot of people are searching for the heat. But yeah, there's some where people are just like, come on, man, like this is. What are you trying to do here with this sauce besides hurt people?
Sure. Well, exactly. So let's talk about the extracts, because this is sort of an issue in the community, right? And for people who don't know about this, you have the heat from the natural pepper, and then there's something you do with a chemical process that will remove this heat, but it changes the flavor. It changes everything about that, right? So now you can get these like insane, like painful, send you to the hospital, give you, gut disorder level Scoville units, but it tastes like what? Like diesel fuel or something, or like it's not a pleasant taste that goes along with it.
Yeah. I've only had, I think, 2 extract sauces. One was when I was visiting Mad Dog, and he was like, "You got to try it." And I was like, "Okay." Like I do everything once, and then so I tried it then, and I was like, "Man, this is crazy."
Yeah. I mean, from my perspective, and I like heat, and I think for some people I know I like an intolerable amount of heat, but I've never had an extract. I'm not interested in an extract because to me, like, I like the feeling. I don't want to push it to this like level where I'm just like inflicting pain upon myself to do it. And I don't have a YouTube channel where it would boost my viewer count or something like that. Like,
well, the interesting thing that he was saying that I never thought of was that he sells this extract to big food producers, and that if they need, they're making like 100,000 pounds of potato salad, and if they want to make it spicy potato salad, they put 10 drops in there, and then suddenly, so it can be very efficient for putting heat on things. But I think for the most part, people are buying it to torture friends.
Sure.
And yeah, we got a fantasy football punishment coming up where I'm sending some sauces to my friend in Vietnam.
Yeah. So speaking of Vietnam, one of the things I find interesting about heat and hot foods and spicy foods is there's a tendency, at least maybe up until recently, traditionally, for this to break along cultural lines. In other words, like Laotian food tends to be very spicy and hot. Some Indian food is very spicy. There's just different regions you can take your pick. And then you have other regions where they don't seem to like any spice whatsoever. And one of them, if you had asked me to name one of the nations that is least tolerant of spice, traditionally, I would have said Ireland.
There you go.
Because I knew people growing up who were Irish, and if you cracked a little pepper on what they were eating, that would be like, no. This what are you doing? This is too extreme. All right? And yet your company has like an Irish vibe and an Irish name. So where's the connection there between Ireland and crack hot sauce?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it doesn't come from hot sauce being everywhere in Ireland. So I went to college a year in Dublin, my junior year of college, and then I moved back there for a job in 2014, and the job was based in Ireland. So my mom's part of the family is from Ireland, so I have my Irish passport, giving me the ability to work in Ireland in the EU. And the company that I was working for, called HubSpot, you had to start a website and a podcast about something that you're passionate about. And I was growing peppers with my dad before I left for Ireland. And I think we had probably 200, 300 habanero and ghost peppers, and we were not going to eat those. So we started making hot sauce. And while I was in Ireland, I continued with this website, crafthotsauce.com, and I was interviewing hot sauce makers from all over the world, and I was just really picking up on their passions and different cultures, and it was just very interesting to hear all these different parts from it. So that's kind of when I was getting into hot sauce when living in Ireland, and I would be traveling on weekends to say Berlin or Amsterdam or Florence and meeting with hot sauce makers. But when I got back to America, I was like, hey, I want to start my own hot sauce company. And I was thinking about what do I want to have this brand be about? And I feel like growing up, just having a garden and being around a lot of local businesses, I thought kind of making it small batch, being involved with the local community was a big piece. But another piece was like when I was in Ireland, like you live, you work to live. And I feel like in America, a lot of people live to work. And I really sensed that importance of relaxing, being present with friends. If you're looking at your phone at the pub, people are like, what are you doing? Like, put your phone, like we're here. And there's a good word to kind of summarize the fun and excitement, which is crack. And so I kind of wanted that
which,
to be
which by the way, for people who are just listening, is CRAIC. And people mispronounce this sometimes, I assume.
Yep. Yeah. So they're like,
but it's pronounced crack. When we're saying crack
or
hot sauce, it's not meant to be some like joke that this stuff is addicting. This is a Gaelic word.
Yeah. And so I wanted kind of crack as our guiding principle is to kind of have it be a good time, interact with the community and not take ourselves too seriously at times. Cause I think people need to hang out, have fun and slow down a little bit.
Yeah. So it's interesting. You know how like when you Google things, now all of a sudden you start like your news feed, you start seeing these things that have to do with your Google terms. And this is tough if you're a writer because you'll be doing research on some topic that you don't care about whatsoever.
Yeah.
And then your feed is just filled with all sorts of like articles about like, I don't know, socks, like specialty socks or something like that. But it's interesting because with crack, my feed, there's a lot of news from Ireland coming into the feed now, and I know now the reason why is because it has that word crack in there. This isn't like this shit, like I just got one today about like what makes a good employee in the toy industry. Wow. And it's like, well, they have to have this crack, this like ability to kind of relax and let loose and sort of have fun and put your guard down.
Wow.
I just thought that was kind of cool.
We've got an Irish term in our vocabulary now.
What's that?
We've got an Irish term in our vocabulary now.
Yeah, and I'm sure it doesn't hurt that there is that kind of pun there too. Yeah. That this stuff is like like I want more of that. I want more of that heat, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's an interest. You know, beyond Ireland, it's the Merrimack Valley is an interesting region because we do have a big populations of people who come from hot food backgrounds. And then you have people who are exactly on the opposite. And I have for sure, and my guess, since you like hot food, you've had this same thing. I've had waiters and chefs come out in different restaurants and say, are you sure you want to get that? Like if I'm ordering Szechuan food or Korean food or whatever it is, vindaloo, where they try to talk me back from whatever I've ordered. Absolutely. Yeah. And then you have to come up with this way of ordering to let them know, no, I really want it that spicy. I'm not joking around.
I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, my thing has been, when I get a little pushback is I'll ask the waiter or the chef, do you like spicy food? And if they say, oh yeah, then I say, I want it as spicy as you like it. And then I get what I want.
Yeah.
Have you experienced that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, totally. So whenever we do cooks, probably with three or four people, including me, and we cook at a commercial kitchen in Lowell, and I always take the cooks out for lunch. They're not on salary yet, but they get a free lunch out of it.
All right.
And oftentimes we go to Lauda Cafe, Lao Asian food, and yeah, they're like, how spicy you want it? Like mild, medium, hot, or Lao hot?
Right.
And
exactly.
I got Lao hot the first time. And there's only been a couple times where I haven't been able to finish the food because of how hot it was. But it was so tasty. But yeah, I'm not on the Lao hot.
Yeah, you feel like you've been poisoned. It's a really intense, in a good way, a really, really intense heat. There's a place called Fien's Kitchen. I don't know if you ever get a chance to. They changed owners at one point. Now they've shut down. There's a place called Fien's Kitchen. It was a Laotian place in Lowell, and it was fantastic. It was really amazing. But I remember eating a spicy dish there. because I told them I wanted spicy, and they were like, "Sit down. We got something we've just taken out of the garden. We're going to give this to you." And I just felt my world kind of compressed. Like, I don't know if I was hallucinating, but I felt like I was kind of in a train, and I saw this thing off in the distance, and I knew it was going to hit me. And it did hit me,
Yeah.
and I was in such pain that I asked my friends not to talk to me. I remember saying, like, guys, just please don't. I didn't even want them to look at me. You know, like it's somehow I was in so much pain that I didn't even want their eyes to turn in my direction. It would have been too much.
Yeah, I've seen some crazy stuff by going to some hot sauce expos. I was in Portland, Oregon last year, and they have a Carolina Reaper eating competition.
Yeah.
And there's this woman she was taking just like a Carolina Reaper, chomp, chomp, next one, chomp, 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 chomp.
Wow.
She got 10 in and then just dropped them and just like stood, like she looked frozen and then just like ran backstage. And it's just like,
Yeah.
man, like those peppers are super hot and yeah, they can really
mess with
end
their
up body.
Even people with a tolerance can end up in the hospital if you go too hot, right? I think I've heard of people who just like are really, really pushing things and end up like 24 hours of misery level.
Yeah, so I've actually done an interview with the creator of the Carolina Reaper and the world's hottest peppers, and supposedly it's kind of a chemical reaction of your body telling you it's hot, but I think those reactions can cause some kind of bodily functions that might not be good for you.
Okay. So now that we've scared everybody, one of the things I want to talk about is your hot sauces are not on this range. You're not doing the kind of macho donkey with the flame coming out of his butt level hot sauce. You're doing something else. So tell me about your hot sauces.
Yeah, so my hot sauces, I like to try to think about my sauces as something that can add more flavor and evolve meals for anything that you eat. And I naturally just kind of think about what some of the pairings are that I like to eat. I mean, I do eat meat, but I also have a lot of veggies and stir fry and just I think I kind of eat within a wide range. So I have a few different hot sauces. I have 3 now. I'm actually working on a 4th this summer, and this is my favorite time of the year when the harvest season comes in. But the first recipe I ever came up with was when I had no idea what I was doing, and it kind of worked. And I was like, "Whoa!" I'm really surprised that this didn't taste horrible because I had no idea what I was doing. But it was during the harvest season. We had habanero and ghost pepper, which are hotter peppers, and then I kind of made a base with onions, garlic, ginger. I thought, let's throw in some fruit. So I put in some pineapple, and I was driving. I was seeing all these pumpkins were coming in. So I was like, let's roast some pumpkin because why not? And it made a really unique sauce. And I have a theory, which is not backed by anything, that the pumpkin really kind of brings in the flavors and holds in the flavors of the roasted pineapple and onions and garlic and ginger. So that actually went on to be the golden pumpkin, which is a very unique sauce, and on the hotter side with habanero and ghost pepper. And then I also grew up like my dad would always get green jalapeno Tabasco. So I wanted like a verde sauce that can really put on any meal. So I have 4 different types of green chili. This one actually has 18 ingredients that we source all locally, and has jalapeno, serrano, tomatillos, peaches, cilantro, apples. So that's a super flavorful but mild sauce. And then we just released the Mill City Red, which is a fermented kind of Louisiana style sauce. So it's kind of a minimalist sauce, but we have it aged for 6 months. It has some cayenne pepper and some onions, garlic, and beets as well.
Yeah. Are all or most hot sauces fermented? Is that part of the process?
Like a lot of people don't even know that there's a lot of fermented hot sauces. So I'd say when I come across like kind of in the craft hot sauce scene, I'd say maybe a 1/5 or a 1/4 of them are fermented. A lot of them are kind of cooked fresh. But fermentation really can change flavors and make some interesting combinations. So that's kind of where I'm moving within crack sauce, doing some more fermented sauces, just because I think it's a lot more unique flavors that you can make from it.
Yeah. So can you give us a hint at number 4?
Yep. So I love like curry, and especially when I was I would, and when I was living in Ireland, I would travel to the UK, and especially Manchester, and Manchester has the curry mile, which I visited a few times, and it's just unbelievable flavor. So I want to make a curry style sauce, a little bit more of a tomato base, which I've never done before, and using some different peppers like Scotch bonnet peppers, some Hungarian wax peppers. So this one's kind of under development right now, which is always a fun time with some taste testers and batches. But it's going to be a curry style.
Yeah. So how long's the process usually?
So it can take as little as 4 to 6 weeks, and then you can go as long as you want. So I have typically done about a 6-month ferment with the Mill City Red. But for kind of the experimental purposes, I'm doing about 4 to 6 weeks, just so I can kind of taste the flavor before I start scaling up that recipe.
Yeah. Hey, for people who aren't food industry, like, we're talking fermentation, and we remember that not everybody kind of gets why we're talking about this. Why do you ferment chilies? What's the point?
So fermentation creates kind of evolution of flavors, and with kind of healthy bacteria. A lot of people like fermented food because there's a lot of good bacteria that's good for your gut. And it's also just a little bit easier for me, kind of storing wise, because throughout the year, I'm doing a lot of my planning, thinking how many bottles am I going to be producing this year? How am I going to be selling? How much pepper am I going to be buying? And then I store it in a freezer. So fermentation is a little bit easier because you can put it into buckets and then have it stored for when you want to use it. And you can have those buckets age and continually evolve in flavor for years. But it's kind of unique because it develops some different flavors, and the combination of different ingredients working together can really create some tasty sauces, and other things like kimchi and pickles, and there's a whole host. You can really ferment a lot of different things.
Yeah. So you mentioned the health aspect, or health aspects, and I wanted to get into this on a few different levels. You mentioned you have vegetarian friends who like to use hot sauces. And I think what's interesting is a lot of people now have restrictive diets. It might be gluten-free, it might be ketogenic, it might be vegan, it might be vegetarian. For whatever reason, they're restricting their diets. And the problem then is your options are now limited, and you find creative ways to make your food interesting, right? And one of the ways is to use hot sauce, right?
Absolutely.
And it also makes me think, like, are there other healthy aspects of using hot sauce that people might not be aware of?
So I every once in a while stuff pops up on like kind of my Google alerts that I have about hot sauce, and there have been academically researched reports that capsaicin can actually help kill cancer cells. So that was something that I didn't really believe until I actually saw an academic research report come out about it. But I think personally it's good for the soul, just because like you can add a little bit onto any food, and it's just providing a lot of extra flavor. And just like I feel like sometimes if you're looking at your fridge, you don't have a lot to bring with you. I was a kind of a rower, so I would always eat a ton, and I'd be traveling a lot. And a hot sauce bottle is perfect because it's really easy to bring around, and you could kind of throw it on food, and it would bring in additional 12 ingredients for a lot of other hot sauces that have those ingredients. So I'd say personally, like I know there are some health benefits, but it can, you got to be sure to look at the bottle, because like our hot sauce actually uses 20 times less salt than you get in sriracha. So for some people that are trying to cut out salt out of their diet. You have to also be looking at the nutrition facts. So I wouldn't say all hot sauce is healthy or unhealthy.
Yeah. So you have a website, you make hot sauces, and you have a podcast. So the website is crafthotsauce.com, where people can go and order hot sauces made by other companies, and you even have like is a subscription box, a subscription service. How do you describe it?
Yeah, it's kind of a curated box. So we do podcasts. We share stories through people's kind of written submissions, and our big thing is trying to share the sauces with the stories. And so we have people that sign up for kind of getting 3 sauces every month to every 3 months, and we kind of curate sauces from all over the world for them.
Yeah, but how does that work in terms of like competition, right? Like because you're making something, and wouldn't you be competing with these other companies that also make similar hot sauces, or like is there something in the nature of the community where the normal rules of competition are maybe a little bit different?
Yeah, so it's a very fast growing industry right now, but I interact with a lot of hot sauce companies every day, every week, and I've just been amazed and really surprised at this point that I've come across very few kind of sour people, and I think a lot of people are trying to help other hot sauce companies just spread the word about craft hot sauce and kind of take an edge from some of those larger traditional hot sauces that have been in the market for years. So I think it's actually very similar to the craft beer industry, that the craft beer side has taken a big cut out of some of the more traditional and legacy beers that have been out there for a while. So I think it's very fast evolving spot, but I think everybody's in it to try to kind of bring more awareness to craft hot sauce. And I think my own line is terrific, but I always kind of recommend some of my favorite sauces to anybody that's suggesting other sauces.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the craft beer analogy is interesting because I kind of remember like maybe the generation or the 2 generations back before mine. If people drank beer, if they were beer drinkers, there was one beer they liked. They liked, say, Budweiser or Michelob or whatever it was. Heineken, maybe, if they were a little bit exotic, right? And they weren't really interested in changing. But like with a lot of people who are into craft beer, are not just, oh, I find, this one thing I like and that's all that I'm ever going to drink. They're looking for novelty, and they're looking for something kind of new and something a little different and with rare ingredients. Or like, does that become a burden over time? Is there like pressure to constantly find something like new, or to adopt some new trend, or, go in some new surprising direction?
Yeah, I'd say it's very hard to differentiate yourself as a craft hot sauce business, because you think about any recipe. Actually, I've heard of a few banana-based hot sauces that like really focus on banana hot sauce, which is something that like I didn't even hear about 4 years ago.
Yeah.
But I think to people that are trying to differentiate, I think it's kind of, why did you start making hot sauce in the first place? And I think I am seeing a real connection to local, but also people that are really going out actively searching for that new perfect hot sauce that is just that perfect amount of heat with like a hint of smokiness. So that's what we're trying to do at crafthotsauce.com, is just connect chili heads with the hot sauces that they're most likely to love, or also connect with their story about what they're doing. Because I think some people, Small Axe Peppers, they started out in Bronx, New York, and they source all their peppers from urban community gardens and then reinvest the proceeds into other community gardens. And so they've actually, now they have 65 cities across America that are growing peppers that they source. And then there's other hot sauce companies that donate 10% of their proceeds to the Rainforest Trust Foundation. So I think there's a lot of great kind of mission-driven hot sauce companies that people connect to as well.
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys watch the news today. You might not be aware of the breaking news. We're in the midst of a nationwide Dr. Pepper shortage. Have you
yeah.
heard about this?
I did see that, yeah.
Okay, so
I just read the
good,
headline,
good.
though.
Right. Yeah. We'll get through it. And then sort of the reason the company seems to be putting forth, the reason why it's hard to get Dr. Pepper is because so many more people are drinking at home, because they used to go into a restaurant, where you have I don't know, whatever. So it's like something kind of novel, and for whatever reason, people want to drink Dr. Pepper at home during this. And I'm just wondering about I've always been into hot sauce. I love hot sauce since I was young, but for sure, the amount of hot sauce I've been buying has gone up during COVID. Am I the only one? Is this a trend? Are you seeing more and more people get into this right now because they're stuck at home?
100%. Yeah. I think it's kind of twofold. It's like people like you that are cooking more, and they're like, oh, what can I do to spice this up or add to a marinade? They're looking at hot sauce. But I think there's a lot of hot sauce companies that are starting out too. I actually, right when coronavirus started happening, I was looking at my website analytics, and I wasn't doing anything totally different than I had in the past few years, but my website traffic suddenly went up 20%. And a lot of people were saying, hey, I just got laid off. I want to start my own hot sauce company to try to build some revenue and everything. So I think a lot of people are starting hot sauce companies now. But I think at the same time, they're looking to their farmers markets, local grocery shops, thinking about what can they add to their meals. And hot sauce, I think, is a perfect fit for people that do a lot of home cooking.
Yeah. Other than your website, where do you sell this stuff? How do people get it?
Yeah, so I do a couple farmers markets. So I do the Lowell Farmers Market at Mill Number 5.
Yeah, is that Sunday?
That's Sunday. Okay. Yep.
So you are there in person, so people can go this Sunday, put your mask on, and buy some crack hot sauce. Is that correct?
I'm actually taking a couple weeks off, but I'm going to be there after Labor Day.
After Labor Day. Okay.
And same thing with the Andover Farmers Market, which is on Saturday.
Okay. What about local stores?
Yeah, so I'm cold calling, heading into shops and doing that. So I'm at Alpine Butcher, Navigation Brewery actually sells my sauce, and Gormley's and Purple Carrot in Lowell. And then I also started selling it in Concord at Concord Cheese Shop, Verrill Farm, and Deborah's Natural Gourmet. So that's part of my strategy. I'm thinking with this winter going on, indoor farmers markets, I don't know if they're really going to be happening. So I'm looking at some ways so I can continually be selling my sauces if we're going to be kind of going back into a lockdown. So I'm continually reaching out to stores around the area, and I've been enjoying it. I've been in kind of sales for a while, and actually I thought I would hate it, but I actually ended up kind of loving sales just with the interactions and meeting people and believing in the products that you're selling. So I'm continuing to add my sauces to more stores in the area.
And just to clarify, you're doing this full time right now, but this is a recent change, right? You were doing this as a side gig. Now you're doing it full time. How long have you been doing it full time?
Yeah, so June 2nd I finished my job.
Was that terrifying? Was that more terrifying than eating the Carolina Reaper? To just say, this is it, I'm diving in.
He still took a deep breath before he answered.
It wasn't scary for me. And I think part of that is I've come from a very privileged position in that I had some savings built up. I also was working on this business for a few years, so it's not like I started it before. And I was previous to this, I was at a startup where I had some big ups and downs and kind of got some tougher skin and used to that feeling. So I kind of knew how to deal with the emotions for it. And I was feeling really burnt out towards the end, kind of come May. And I was like, I don't know if I can want to keep up with this and with kind of doing my full-time job, and feeling like I was kind of suppressing some of the creativity and other kind of tasks that I love doing. So I was like, hey, I'm going to go for it full time. I want to give it a good go. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But I definitely have regrets if I didn't go for it. And I think it's been great. I think it's. I also did a business accelerator program with E4All, which is kind of works with Lowell and Lawrence businesses that I got paired up with 3 mentors. They kind of took me through all the different pieces of starting a business. And so that was super helpful for me to have like a cohort and community of other entrepreneurs. So I didn't feel like I'm all alone. And I've learned so much through this program too. So I really feel fortunate for kind of having E4All kind of help me develop as a business and really kind of get me ready for the next phase.
Yeah. Well, I think you've won me over, and I have been ordering ever since we had that initial email exchange. I've been ordering my hot sauce through crafthotsauce.com, and you've been keeping me in the heat. I want to ask about one thing before I turn this over to Lou, because Lou always has some questions. I want to ask about your podcast, because you started this almost as like podcast was critical in the beginning. You're still doing that podcast. So what's the podcast? What's it called? What sort of things do you talk about on a chili hot sauce oriented podcast?
Yeah. So the name isn't the most unique one, but it's Craft Hot Sauce Podcast. I feel like I had to keep the Craft Hot Sauce with the crafthotsauce.com. But what I do is interview all different types of chili, hot sauce related folks. Some of them are hot sauce business owners. Other ones are farmers. And I've actually, through kind of inbound marketing and my newsletter, which has grown pretty significantly, I just get introduced to people from all over the world, and they kind of share, hey, I'm in Zimbabwe and kind of working with youth to get them into agriculture. And I was like, whoa, that sounds really interesting. Like, would you want to talk about it on the podcast? And they're like, yes, like this is what we're trying to kind of share about what we're doing. So I'm always searching for people that are really passionate about what they're doing and might not have a platform to kind of easily share the message out with other kind of like-minded folks. So I'm always looking for interesting guests throughout the world. And I try to learn more about kind of their drive and passion, because that's kind of what really hooked me into hot sauce. It wasn't that it was all of a sudden it's like, whoa, I made a hot sauce batch and then I'm like in love with it. I kind of was a vampire, feeling like other people's passions and drive and how they're looking to spread their flavor or culture through their hot sauce. And so that's what I'm continuing to do, is kind of interviewing people. Not a ton of structure, kind of similar. And not saying that you don't have a lot of structure with this one, but yeah, just kind of getting to know people about what they're doing, and we always try to also highlight kind of local music guests, because I love also stumbling across music that I wouldn't otherwise find, and try to give them an opportunity to kind of.
Are you interested in all genres, or are you into a particular type of music?
I think I'm really into all genres. I probably listen to folk, alt rock, probably that the most, but I love all different types of music too.
Yeah, and we've, I emailed you about this because I was so excited. I saw on the internet a picture of Clint Conley from Mission of Burma, one of my favorite bands growing up, Mission of Burma, a very important, post-punk Boston band, wearing a crack hot sauce hat.
Oh no!
And
really?
I was so excited. So I had to write to you about that. That was very, very cool. Lou, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have several. Brian, you've got me interested during the course of this interview. You've got me interested in the prequel, so I want to flesh that out a little bit. How did you end up a hot sauce mogul? What was the path that got you here?
So, I think it was that I started getting into business and thinking about entrepreneurship towards the end of my time at UMass Amherst, and I read a book. Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week. And it kind of blew my mind. It was like, whoa, like you don't need to go to business school to start a business. Like you can start a business by yourself and make it sustainable. And so I think it was when I was taking some business courses at college, I was thinking about entrepreneurship and also my love for traveling. And then when I was at HubSpot, I was consulting and selling to very small businesses talking about digital marketing. And then that's when I had the hot sauce website, and I was like, whoa, I'm really passionate about this. And this is kind of with food and travel and music combined into one. I think that's when I was starting to piece together. It's like, I wonder if I can actually make this a business. And it took a long time to kind of get to where I am today, but I think it was kind of an evolution. But there was a few moments, whether those be books or listening to other podcasts or interviewing other successful hot sauce business owners, that I really wanted to go for it.
If I got it correctly, you made a batch of hot sauce, and then this evolved into the business. What was the genesis of that moment? What made you decide, I'm going to try to make this?
Yeah, so I think it was just pure boredom plus a surplus of 150 habanero peppers, because
What happened?
I didn't want to throw them out, and having a few weeks off before a new job, it was awesome. And I was like, just gave me the time to make a batch of hot sauce for the first time.
Were you into spicy food? And sorry to jump on your question. Were you into spicy food when you were young? Or was that
I remember the first time I had a buffalo chicken sub, I was like, like it just like kind of shocked my mouth. I was like, what was that? And then I tried one. That was like when I was 12 years old. And then like when I was 14, I tried it again. I was like, whoa, like this is really good. So yeah, I wasn't like a spice nut, but I did like kind of that spice level where you're almost sweating. But I think that's kind of built up over time for sure.
Why do we want hot? You guys went through chapter and verse talking about some of your experiences and some what sounded like some pretty unpleasant experiences, although you said it while you were laughing. Why do people crave hot, and why do people like to get to that point in terms of ingesting that much heat?
Yeah, I think it's something where you just kind of get some extra feelings from eating, and I think spice really does a lot of times when it is spicy. There's some incredible flavors that come out that you haven't tasted before, which is kind of ultimately why I love spicy foods is for the flavor. But I think it just adds another element to your eating experience, is that dimension of heat. And so I'm always looking for something that's not going to make my meal unpleasant because it's too hot. But I do like kind of that threshold there where it's just perfect and gives me a little bit of a sweat or kind of a good tingle.
I worked at a radio station group, and we had a client who was a Thai restaurant, and the salesman would take us out and would patronize them about once a week, and we'd go. And the thing was, for the group, if we didn't come back with our lips numb, we didn't go hot enough. So I'm not quite where you guys are, but I do like a little bit of a tingle. But I don't like, as I call it, stupid hot. From a recipe standpoint, what's the difference between stupid hot and flavorful?
Definitely the person, because I cook for my fiance a lot, and like what's perfect for me is uneatable for her. So there's that balance. Mm-hmm. But I'd say definitely being aware of what peppers you're using, because my hottest hot sauce with the Golden Ghost pepper, about 20% of the bottle is peppers, compared to my 40 Shades of Green Chili, that Verde sauce, which is mild. That's about 40%. So there's a much higher percentage of peppers, but they're on a much milder spectrum. So knowing what peppers you're cooking with can be a big difference. And you can look up kind of heat levels of different peppers pretty easily on the internet.
Yeah, so people who want to try your sauces and they like mild, they just want a little bit.
Yeah,
they're going to go with the green sauce. What's that called?
Yeah. 40 Shades of Green Chili.
40 Shades of Green Chili. If you want spicy, you're going to go with Golden Pumpkin, which happens to be my favorite. And then the middle is the red.
That.
It's good.
Oh,
yeah. It is definitely my favorite.
I'm a New England boy, so anything pumpkin, I'm good.
Right, of course. Well, it gives it a kind of, like I like a lot of Caribbean hot sauces, which are sort of mustard-based. Mm-hmm. And it gives it that weird, almost like mustardy sort of like zip that I really like. I mean, and I'm sorry, the middle, the red sauce is, what's that called again?
It's the Mill City Red.
Mill City Red. Made in Lowell, Massachusetts.
All right. Now, while we're on the peppers, you mentioned earlier in the program that genetics have a lot to do with it, and I think you're talking about pepper genetics. Is there a market that begged the question for me? Is there a market out there for stud pepper seeds?
Absolutely.
Yeah, really?
Yeah. Yes. So Smokin' Ed Curry is he has all these pepper awards for the hottest peppers, but there's been many people that have tried to go onto his farm, steal his peppers to start growing them himself, and he's had to invest in security, but also telling people about he has fake farms in these areas, so people are kind of distracted and try to go somewhere else. So
He's using subterfuge, pepper subterfuge.
yeah, so yeah, that's a big thing. Nothing that I ever want to get into. I know if I need to go for the hottest peppers, I know who to call, but yeah, that's not for me.
All right, now I'll let you go with this one. What are some of the more unusual applications for hot sauce, food pairings, things like that you do yourself or you've run into?
Good question. So I think my favorite one, which was a joint experience with me and my college roommate. We had hummus with hot sauce, Parmesan cheese, and then dipping pretzels or carrots into that. So that is my all-time favorite.
It's funny though. The most unusual part of that for me was the Parmesan cheese. I'm going hummus and hot sauce.
The Parmesan cheese is key. But I actually make steel cuts oats a lot in the morning, and I love putting the 40 Shades of Green Chili just because it has a lot of flavor, and putting hot sauce in smoothies as well.
Ooh,
I mean, there are definitely some interesting foods that people don't that if you add a little kick to them, I'll occasionally put like chili flake in a herbal tea.
Oh, chili flake
night,
everywhere,
especially
yeah.
if my throat hurts a little bit. It feels really good for my throat. Coffee, you can put a little chili flake, and I'm not the first person to have done this. I think this historically, chili was put in drinks like chocolate and things like that. That gave it a kind of a little kick, and maybe it was good for the health. Who knows? My wife was very excited because she found out yesterday that some place is selling a like a very spicy type of hot pepper ice cream.
Oh,
I'm not a sweets guy,
Yep.
but she was very excited because she figured, here's something with hot peppers that you've never had. And
I've done that before. I had some black cherry Carolina Reaper sauce on vanilla ice cream.
Yeah.
And I suggested to everyone, and I say, I know I sound crazy, but until you try it.
Yeah, see, I get it. I'm not a sweets guy, but I get why that would be good because you have just like a nice combination of salt and sweet and even just like the temperature. I think it would be fun to kind of have something as cold as ice cream, but yet have it like bring a little bit of fire.
Let's go. Let's go the other way. Talk about pairings within the hot sauce itself, because pumpkin came up in this conversation, and that's something I wouldn't have thought of. I don't want you to give away any secrets, but have anything in the banks that you've been interested in trying out?
Yeah, so I mean, when I think about a hot sauce recipe, I just try to kind of what Doug was saying with the salt and sweet. I always try to kind of create a good base with some heat, some sweetness, oftentimes from fruit or vegetables. I always have vegetables and usually a base of onion and garlic, sometimes some ginger. And so I'm trying to think about like, what are the vegetables, some that are kind of more of a base, like I use a lot of carrots in hot sauce that provide a kind of a sweet base for things to attach on. But then I think about the peppers. So the peppers have their own distinct, beautiful flavors oftentimes, but thinking about what would pair well with the pepper. So the habanero is real fruity and hot. So if I'm going with that kind of fruity, I might pair it with another fruity thing like peach or mango. So I kind of think about with a new recipe is like, what's a style or what's a pepper or ingredient that I want to highlight, and then start kind of working around that. And definitely some trial and error, but a lot of times I take some time to think about kind of a combination of foods that might work well together. And so with this curry sauce, I won't release all the ingredients yet, but I'm thinking about when I'm making curry myself, what are some things that I'm using like lemongrass and ginger and other kind of other ingredients that might work well with it.
Yeah. Well, the air conditioning at my house fell apart yesterday.
Uh-oh.
So I'm going to go home and I'm going to grill dinner tonight. I'm going to get out my Weber grill and I'm going to be pairing whatever I eat with golden pumpkin hot sauce from Crack Hot Sauce for sure. So the guest today has been Brian Ruhlmann from CraftHotSauce.com. Brian, thank you so much for coming on today. I really, really appreciate it. I had a blast. Hope you had a good time.
Me too. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, right on. Next week, our guest is going to be James Mabry, who's the president of Middlesex Community College. I hope everyone will listen, and I'll see you then. Take care.